Alright, YouTube, you may have seen, of course, I just had an upload by this title. I realized I was slightly wrong on the Georgia Guidestones. There is no 4 on the stone cube, but I know that I'm going to get shit for that from people who believe in such things, so I decided to just remake the video. There are 4 numbers on the Georgia Guidestones, and 3 of them are being sort of singled out. They're ignoring the fact that there's a 20 on one side. And singling it out to make light of the fact that they think that August 14th, which is coming up in less than 2 weeks, is a date where there'll be a major disaster, something else will happen, end times come, something like that. The Georgia Guidestones are usually used within the realm of Judeo-Christian conspiracy theory. They think it has something to do with Satanism or something. The statements on the Georgia Guidestone, most of them have to do with like respecting nature, managing reproduction. There is one that's a little bit ominous, which is, oh, well, keep man in harmony with nature at a population of 500 million people. I'm not sure how this would be achieved under even the most utopian of designs without a mass purge or mass sterilization, but I guess, yeah, you could theoretically do it. It'd just take a hell of a long time, and I think we're a little bit too far gone for that. So there is an 8 and a 14 and a 16 on the Guidestones, which is the date that they're looking at, of course. There's also a 20 there, and there's a pair of M's on one side, which people take to mean 2000. So it's not entirely clear what, if any, arrangement is actually supposed to be used for a date. And this stone, of course, was removed. I think probably the people removed this little capstone specifically to make people wonder, to give it more attention. The Georgia Guidestones some years ago were heavily vandalized. They cleaned it up, but it was pretty funny anyway. I think what you're seeing is really nothing more than a sort of placard put there by someone with more money than sense who wanted to leave something behind that people would talk about after they died. It certainly appears to be inspired by sort of the eugenics era philosophy, and that's what I would class it as. I wouldn't class this as occultism, I would class it as philosophy. The same is true of the Masons in general, other than all being monotheists. Really, it's a philosophical and symbological system that links them together. You can read Masonic literature. You can get it off eBay fairly cheap. There's quite a bit. I've got, I think, 24 different Masonic booklets that were published by their various orders. I'm going to be synthesizing that, by the way, into a future release where I synthesize these works that I've read into sort of an overarching explanation of the Masonic system, which will be, it will try to remain unbiased between those who like the Masons or are Masons and those who think that they're like the devil incarnate and they're trying to take over the world. They control the Catholics. They control the Queen of England. They control, whatever. They control George Washington. And we can see, of course, constitutional government in the American sense was almost a Masonic thing, but I think this has more to do with the Rosicrucians. R.C. Christian I take to mean Rosicrucian. I think it's a little bit of an anagram, a quasi-anagram, of course, and that's what it is. But I don't think that you can look at the numbers on this little stone or in any or the statements there and say, oh well, it's predicting something's going to happen this day. If it does, it would have to be man-made. If it were on that exact day and it had something to do with the Guidestones, it would be more evidence of a secret cabal that I don't even think exists. I think that people are just egotistical and power hungry, and they compete with one another, backstab one another, and that's why the world's screwed up. Not because of some great master plan, but because of the absence of some great master plan. I've spoken about this before. I believe that it's the absence of logic and reason and some overarching plan for the world that has led the world to the condition it's in today. Ultimately, though, it doesn't really matter. Either way, there's some dystopia going on. Mankind's kind of doomed. There will be, I believe, a nuclear war in our future, probably in our lifetimes. I'm looking forward to it. I know how to survive in such a situation. I've already done research into it. I know how to grow my own food. I know herbal medicine and so forth. I understand the concept of decontamination, which unfortunately a large and growing segment of the world population doesn't understand. The wisest nations among us still build fallout bunkers. We unfortunately frown upon people who do, call them survivalists, and say that they're nuts. I don't think we should be doing that. I think we should encourage such behavior, but that's just me. That's just me being realistic about the fact that we're not even a century into the atomic era, but whatever. It wouldn't be a natural disaster selling. If 8/14 does turn out to be like massive disaster day, it'd be like terrorist attack or some or war or something. But the thing is, that keeps happening so commonly this year, especially like way more than in the past. In the last couple of years, it's really picked up. Things have gotten so much worse throughout the world. As I mean, crime, like violent crime rates, I'll take the US, are down in the US. Like shootings are down. It's very funny, by the way. The same Democrats that point to the crime graphs and they say, "Oh, well, more police aren't being slaughtered. Look at the how many fewer shootings there are now." Yeah, there are fewer shootings. That's the fucking point. When you were pushing gun control, you didn't trot those statistics out. You kept lying and saying there was an epidemic of gun crime. Now you're saying, oh, it's at a 40-year low. I was saying that months ago. Isn't that funny? Trump got you to tell the truth for once. He's mentioned that before. But I'm getting off on a tangent here, and I'm not, by the way, disclaimer, I'm not voting for Trump. I'm voting for Gary Johnson. So my political analysis remains unbiased. Largely, that's mainly the reason at this point why. I just think that it's all a bunch of stupidity. It's all turning into a circus, and I've got something to say about that some other time that I'll put to video. But if you look, do you think that the entire month of August will pass without major incidents? That's the real question that I would ask. The answer is probably not. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where there are so many terrorist attacks, so many proxy conflicts, so many tales of like genocide, ethnocide, occupations, suppression, oppression, political discourse gone wrong, and insults hurled, and nation rising up against nation. It's gotten to the point where you expect it. Like, I expect every day to read the news and find out ISIS got a nuke and set it off somewhere, or North Korea just, gassed 100,000 prisoners and piled their bodies up to form the foundation of Kim's new palace, or that Russia has antagonized the Finns, or the Polish, or the Estonians, or the Ukrainians, or something. Or that China has sailed ships into, like, Japan's territorial waters in a willful defiance of NATO and the Western world at large and said, haha, we can do this and get away with it because we're China. I keep expecting things like this to happen. I'm almost surprised that they don't happen more frequently with how quickly things are going to shit. The world is destabilizing right now. Now, it may heal itself. Events may unfold that sort of scales back the social alienation, scales back the interplay between nations on the world stage in a more aggressive and threatening manner. That could happen. It's perfectly fine to predict that it would. But at the same time, if things do continue to go in the direction they're going, we're going to be less than 3 minutes from midnight. They've already moved it to 3 minutes from midnight. I think it's like 2.5 minutes from midnight myself. I think that it's more dangerous than the 80s. Just my thoughts. I think the fact that the Russians were building lots of big nukes in the 1980s because of Ronald Reagan's Star Wars bullshit, that wasn't, there was still ambassadors going back and forth. There were still bilateral relations. The USSR was still quite a bit weaker than it would be. Now there's so many other cores, smaller cores, yes, but pockets of stupidity in the world. You look at ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the fucking Taliban, Boko Haram, the Chinese nationalists increasingly urging their own state to claim more territorial waters, build more nukes, build more ships, build fortified islands. The Japanese scrapping their demilitarization and their pacifism doctrine from within their constitution. The South Koreans opting for using THAAD systems, asking for nuclear weapons from us. The Polish hosting Aegis offshore. The Romanians hosting it. What happened in Turkey. You look at all of these different things. This has been the premier year of destabilization probably since the atomic war began. The fact that you don't have, Vietnam War or Korean War level scale, like symmetric butchery between standing armies, that doesn't matter. Plenty of people are being butchered by smaller militant groups scattered all across the world. And their attacks have begun in the West as well now with great fervor. ISIS is attacking many European nations. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see another 100 plus people killed in any single incident this August. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. At this point, I'd be surprised not to see it. I think it was a really abnormally calm month, like the quiet before the storm. I might be more worried if there weren't an attack I'd be worried that they were building up to something bigger if they weren't attacking anything in August. It'd take like 3 or 4 good months before I'd begin to calm down if I noticed ISIS suddenly go silent. So yeah, the 14th, certain, yeah, there could be like 200-300 people killed by terrorists in some European capital that day. Hell, why not? They'll pick any random day of the week. It doesn't really matter. In fact, if they wanted to get people going on a religious basis, they probably would choose 8/14 because people have already predicted that it will be a major event, and so they want more media coverage. They want this story to get spread around so people get more scared. If that's really their goal, they probably would unleash an attack that day. Save some of that nuclear material they got over from Saddam's Iraq that George W. and Hillary Clinton left in ruins, and they'd lace that around some fucking C4 and set it off somewhere in Baghdad or something and kill 10,000 people. Just irradiate them all of a sudden you get a whole bunch of cancer kids wandering around in addition to all the other bloodshed that's going on. So yeah, a little bit about the Georgia Guidestones. Sorry about the previous video. I thought there were 5 numbers on it for some reason. Apparently it's only 4, unless you count the double M's, which stand probably for 2000. But then again, they could stand for Mickey Mouse for all we know. I'm not really sure. We don't have an explanation. So no, I don't think the end of the world comes this August, just like the last one. But I would be surprised if there weren't like major terrorism, some, big earthquake. They happen, every couple months you get a fairly large earthquake. Every year or half a year you get a really big earthquake. That could happen in August. We could get hit by an asteroid. You'd have another, like that one that blew up over Russia, flattened half a town with the force of an atomic weapon. That could happen. Yeah, certainly. All of these things could happen. Epidemic could break out somewhere. Ebola could come back, wipe out 10,000 people in a week, for all we know. That's about all. Peace out.